gonna be a bit of a raw video today. As I mentioned in an earlier post, I've been going through a little bit of a dip lately, and I kind of just want to talk about that and go into why I'm talking about that today. It was how I dropped my phone in the lake, and honestly, I felt this coming on before that happened, and then when that happened, it was really just kind of confirmation that I needed to disconnect and really just check in with myself. I said that I was going to keep it real, and I am going to keep it real today, so I don't know how I'm going to edit this, if I'm going to throw in funny sound effects or what's going to happen. But let's talk about the low waves. If you haven't been through a low wave before, welcome. It's really just periods of energy where you feel low, you feel uninspired, you feel unmotivated, lazy, sad, frustrated, you know, whatever have you. Feeling disconnected, feeling like your intuition is cloudy. You know, just periods of time where you're more inclined or tend to be a little harder on yourself or beat yourself up more. You know, sometimes we feel these periods of energy coming on, and then sometimes we don't realize it until we're in it. As in my case, I felt this coming on about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, but to be honest, I felt it at the beginning of this month. I was turning my calendar over to April, and I was trying to schedule out, you know, my new readings, my new videos, and I just remember looking down at the calendar, and I just didn't want to schedule anything this month. For whatever reason, I just had this feeling like, I don't know if I want to plan anything just yet. Now I understand why. Honestly, I just began feeling tired, and I thought it was because I was overworked, and I thought it was because I was overexerting myself, but honestly, I just began to feel tired, and normally, you know, the thought of doing readings and the thought of making a new video and the thought of, you know, doing all this stuff that I love doing normally really motivates me and really inspires me, and I began to notice that I was no longer feeling that way, and it felt more like I was beginning to push to want to make these things happen. And it's very, very different when you're in the flow and you just flow into these different activities all naturally. But I began to feel a push, and I began to feel like I was needing to do it instead of not even needing, but it just felt like I had to, rather than I wanted to or felt like I should. I realized that now was not the time to be focusing on these things, and I realized that, you know, despite these being things that I absolutely love doing, that was not where the energy was focusing itself at this time. That's just not where the energy was. The energy was not on giving my energy away at this time. I really want to talk about my perspective through this, and you know, how I've been handling this kind of energy and how I have handled it before, and you know, what I've learned going into it once again. Okay, so the wave happens, the wave is here, you're in the dip. What do we do? The first step is understanding that you're in the dip. Realizing what's happening gives you a sense of control when you're in a situation where you're not in control. It just gives you a sense of being centered in this kind of situation, being centered in a situation where you have to surrender. And now, as someone said really beautifully to me the other day, it is surrendering to the flow. And that's a pretty hard concept for, you know, a lot of people to understand, myself included. In my earlier days, you know, I just could not understand, how the heck do you surrender? Like, I would say, okay, I surrender, but I didn't truly understand how to give myself up to the energy, you know, and how to just swim with the current. So realizing that you're in the energy is the first step to empowering yourself to just be in it. Now, there's really no way of knowing how long a dip will last. You know, some can last days, some last weeks. I've had some last an entire season, like 3 months or so. For some people, it can last years. You really just don't know. It's really not about focusing on the length of time or the duration. You know, it's not about waiting it out. It's so much more about what the wave is calling for you to do in that time. It's what needs to be addressed. Because in my experience, the dips can last as long as they need to until you get the message. You know, in my case, it's really just, you know, looking at where am I supposed to be taking the channel? What am I supposed to be doing with YouTube? you know, it always comes back to, am I doing enough with my purpose? Even more is understanding what new fears do I have and what new limitations have I placed on myself with, you know, experiencing all this new growth that just suddenly came out of nowhere for me last month. Sometimes these dips present themselves as a way to just kind of brake check us, because when you accumulate, you know, all this new growth, all this new progress, all this new advancement, you also have to be able to integrate it and then realize what new patterns have to be broken now that you're entering this new level of expansion. And it also goes into really just taking the time to acknowledge all the things that have been popping up from the high period. You know, we always have the high period where none of this stuff matters while we're enjoying our life, right? And then as soon as we get to the dip, that's when we really need to take the time to evaluate all of it. That's when we take the time to integrate all of it. That's when we take the time to clear the dust and do our work to make room for the next high. There's been a lot of things, and I'm sure I'm not the only one out there, where you experience this phenomenon where you're, you know, living your daily life, and then certain memories keep popping up, certain people keep popping up, certain situations, they keep popping up, and then you turn a blind eye to them. You're like, oh no, I don't need to think about that right now. So that's really what this wave has been calling for me to do, and it's really to allow myself the space. What is allowing myself the space? It's just setting aside the time where I can feel fear, where I can feel rage, where I can, you know, drop some tears, where I feel safe to just let it out and speak my worries and my fears out loud. It's bringing back all those thoughts that I've been avoiding, the thoughts and events and situations and fears that keep coming back up, and finally giving them the space and the time to come up so that I can see them, so that I can acknowledge them. What's not seen and what's not acknowledged will just continue cycling back and back and back again until it gets our attention and until it has that space to be looked at from a different perspective. When you realize that what's been in your head and when you say it out loud sounds totally different. And that's when you're able to really give it that new perspective and see and realize, I've been worried about something that doesn't even sound right. I've been worried about something that doesn't even sound true, that doesn't even really resonate when I say it out loud. It goes into understanding, like, you just have to lay out all your cards on the table. You know, when you're playing super close to the heart, even you can't see what you're really holding there. And then when you just lay it out on the table, then you can get a different perspective, and then you can get a different sense of awareness and realize those fears are false. That belief needs to go. Why am I still holding on to this card? The point is, no one else has to see it but you. You know, honestly, I wasn't even planning on doing this video. I wasn't planning on doing a video, like, at all. Especially not today, given how windy it is and how many distractions are around me today, surprisingly, in the middle of the week. And I was honestly just unsure of how this would even come across. I could have just dealt with it quietly and then, you know, released another video when I'm back in my more happy-go-lucky kind of energy. It just feels kind of wrong to skip over this, and for whatever reason, I just feel really called to make this kind of video and share this on my channel. For whatever reason, this needs to be put out there, and I feel that it's important to share. And I even want to say that it's for the reason that, I mean, there's a divine reason for everything, but for me, you know, the people who I watch and who I have watched, I never got to see anyone go through their low periods. And, you know, it was always everyone coming back out after the low period and being like, oh yeah, I went through this, I went through that. But nobody ever shared what it was like while they were in it. I think maybe that's what I'm just trying to do here, is I am in my low period, and, you know, I work through my waves and I work through my stuff just like anyone else, and I have to be able to know how to navigate that, especially when I'm focusing on also being able to help heal others and help guide others. And if anything, you know, maybe that this is just meant to be an inspirational video that says it's okay to be vulnerable when you're in a low period, and it's okay to be able to share that, and that you don't have to hide it. I guess I just want to finish this out with a reminder that, you know, we all go through our natural cycles of high and low. We all go through our ups and downs. So every high is followed by a low. Every low is followed by a high. Funny story, I pull cards for myself every month, and I remember a few weeks back I had pulled the Tower for my month of April, and it's just really funny because when I pull cards for myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that. And so it's like, I knew this was coming. If anything at all, I'm just taking you guys on my journey with me, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, the topsy-turvies, whatever. And hopefully there was a message in here for you or something that you needed to hear that might help you through your natural cycles of ups and lows, and hopefully help you in some way. Okay, well, that's where I will end it for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts, your comments, and your support. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. I think it's really funny that there was this guy who came up to me when I was by a pond. And he started talking to me about turtles. And he was like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of turtles over there. You should take photos of them. And I was like, oh. And then I stopped and realized just how significant that was, because for me, turtle medicine and turtle spirit animal are all about slowing down. So I was like, the universe gets me again.